Well, Corey Saylor comes from the Council on the American Islamic Relations Organization. He says cooperation at all levels of society is extremism.
It's very difficult when you have a government intervening to sort of decide, well, who are the good Muslims and who are the bad Muslims, who are the good Christians and who are the bad Christians. I think that's very disconcerting. I think that what we need to see is more of what we've seen the last few days, which is a strong reaction from civil society, from groups in the public sector. And what needs to happen is it can't just be a one-time reaction where everybody issues condemnations, they have marches. It needs to be a long-term reaction where these civil society groups come together and work on the ground to make sure that extremists have no place in their communities.
Is part of the dynamic, has it also got to be about education? And as much as in the immediate aftermath of Wednesday in Woolwich, one was quite surprised by a lack of information on the people who were kind of saying things like, well, you've got to understand where these alleged killers were coming from. But they were talking about, one guy that we had on one of our reports was talking about the conflict in Pakistan. But there are no British forces on the ground in Pakistan. Yes, there are British forces on the ground in Afghanistan, not in Iraq, not in Mali, not in Somalia. So they seem to be getting terribly excited about a war or a conflict that they don't get.
Well, the unfortunate reality in the aftermath of any kind of tragedy like what we saw there in London is that you're going to get a lot of conflicting reports. Nobody's really going to understand what's going on, and it's going to take time to develop a rational response. And that's the key thing that has to happen. Time has to pass. I know we all want payback for what happened to the soldier, but it has to be done in the way that a lawful society deals with such things. And I believe it has to come from civil society. So the person we should look to at this point in time is Ingrid Loyo-Kennett. She's the lady and started talking to them. She didn't stand aside. She didn't react in an extreme fashion like what we've seen coming out of the English Defence League. She tried to deal with the problem rationally and directly. So it's not a statement of condemnation. It's action that she took, and it was reasonable and it was measured.
Okay, what she did was incredibly selfless and very, very brave. I mean, what are you saying? Are you saying that she should, what, do a tour of mosques around the UK,
No,
or that should be distilled down into what?
Sure, she is our example here. I think that those of us that live in democratic societies need to protect those societies. We can't just look to the government and say, you guys deal with it. We have to step up. So she laid the example out from us. It's time for the citizens to stop tisking at the television set and think about, well, what can I do to contribute? So she's shown the model, the example, a reasonable, measured response. Now what we need to do is get community leaders to come together and make sure that that reasonable, measured response that she showed us becomes a long-term thing and not just, well, we issued a condemnation and we had a march.